Step right back into the Manumit Podcast, everybody, with your host, Glenn Johnson of Jabez Financial there in Uncasville, Connecticut. He's a registered investment advisor. He and the team want to help you out at jabezfinancial.com. And you can bookmark and subscribe to this podcast at themanumitpodcast.com and get it on Apple and Spotify as well. There are even videos surrounding the podcast, all sorts of great material there, again, on themanumitpodcast.com. And again, the Jabez Financial team wants to help you. In fact, they're helping you create financial freedom through purpose-driven planning. And with that, I bring in not just the host of this podcast and an investment advisor, but also co-author of a brand new book called The Motivation Manifesto, and that is Glenn Johnson. I'm your co-host, Doug Turnbull. But Glenn, how you doing today? Happy Friday. We're recording on.
Yes, fantastic. And thank you, Doug. It's a beautiful day, and it's going to get better.
Amen to that. Love that motivation and that mindset there. And Glenn and I, we just had a chance to meet in person very recently. And I don't make any secret, I'm recording remotely for this outside of Atlanta, Georgia. You're in Connecticut. We got to meet here at one of the different training, there's an operations training thing here at our employment place impact partnership that we work with your firm with, Glenn. So it was good to see you and your wife, R, and everybody in person there. And you know, and now you're going to be back in Atlanta again because of the aforementioned book. So tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, that was real exciting to be able to make my contribution to the book Motivation Manifesto with Les Brown. I remember when I was in my early 20s and I would go to these personal professional development seminars. And one time I was sitting in Hershey Stadium in Pennsylvania, and I was way up in the nosebleed section, and Les Brown took the stage and the place went crazy. And he delivered a speech that was just overwhelmingly inspiring. And I remember thinking, I was just in my early 20s. I thought, wow, you know, it's that type of thing that really can inspire somebody to change the direction of their lives. And I remember buying his cassette tapes and I would listen to him over and over again. And he became one of my mentors, one of my heroes that you know what, this is somebody that has a mindset that I'd like to emulate.
Yeah. So he's a motivational speaker. That's his main.
Yeah. And I'll see he's almost 80 years old now. He might be 80. I don't know, but he's still doing extraordinarily well. And his attitude is right on par. In fact, this past June, I got to go to Atlanta and share a stage with him. And that was exciting.
That is really cool.
And he had put out an opportunity for a dozen or so people of us to be able to co-author a book with him, which is being released on November 19th this year. And that's why I'll be in Atlanta for the book signing with him. And it's a collaboration of a dozen different authors or so, sharing their perspective on their perspective on life and attitude and how that can really be a difference maker. And I'm excited that my contribution to the book was essentially my story. And
cool.
Yeah, there's which it really illustrates how do you overcome a variety of different adversities and coming out on top and gaining in wisdom from each one in every different aspect of life. So I'm super excited about its release and the impact that it can have.
That's fantastic. So again, that's a book that you and several others have co-authored with Les Brown called The Motivation Manifesto. And do you know where people can find that book?
It will be on Amazon and also in a number of bookstores as well, I'm sure. But I will get a link for it on my website once it's officially released.
And that website, it'll be on jabezfinancial.com and themanumitpodcast.com.
That's correct.
Gotcha. Well, that's great to know there. Thanks for sharing that, Glenn. And you mentioned November 19th. That's the day this drops here. This podcast is out November 19th. So this book will be out by then. Hey, I looked up Les Brown as you were talking about him. I was not really too familiar. And it says he used to be married to Gladys Knight.
Yeah, he was.
Wow. That's fantastic. What a story right there. So basically, I'm best friends with Gladys Knight now. If I'm doing a podcast for Glenn Johnson and he's doing a book with Les Brown, that basically I'm buddies with Gladys Knight and the Pips. So there you go. I've got that on my resume. I love it. No,
that's right.
Very cool. Well, always anything that I've heard you say, Glenn, is very inspiring. And we're going to get into some more of that here with just basically how people can achieve a quality of life in retirement. It's not just about longevity. It's about quality here.
Right.
I've got to mention, though, your 5 Fs as you talk about your story and all of this you cover in the Motivation Manifesto: faith, family, friends, fitness, and finances.
Exactly.
That all comes together in your story, I'm sure.
It does, and actually, it's addressed in the book as well, because the program that we've put together, I call it "Winning at Life," and how do we define exactly what it is that we want, what kind of success would look like in each of those areas, and then move towards that. But today, we're talking about what that quality of life is going to look like financially in retirement.
And a lot of people feel down on that too. There's been two different measurements here, but the one I'm going to look into that you and I discussed offhand before is a study, the article published by Yahoo Finance. So they didn't do the study. It was actually done by the Mercer CFA Institute Global Pension Index, which I must say, Glenn, out of all the global pension indexes, Mercer CFA is my favorite. Okay.
Oh, sure.
I look at them all day. Mercer. Okay. So they've been doing it since 2009. And ever since they've done this study, U.S. has had a C+ grade this time around. It ranked 29th out of 48 countries in their different measurements of it. And basically the big obstacles for U.S. not being a higher grade are that the birth rate's down, life expectancy is up, and less people are getting pensions, right? And less people are saving money. And it's just all kind of rolling downhill snowball effect. So while, Glenn, someone may say, hey, I want to retire at 62 years old and I have great health. I've been taking care of myself. Look, fitness on your list over there, right? Maybe they have faith, family, friends, and fitness all buttoned up, but their finances not so much. And will that money carry them into their 90s if that's their goal? So walk us through a little bit about the U.S.'s grade and then people trying to aim for better quality.
Well, we've talked about in the past about how after ERISA was passed in 1974 and companies got away from using pension plans, and the tax law changes gave birth to tax code section 401k and 403b and that sort of thing, where it shifted the responsibility of somebody's financial security and retirement. It shifted the responsibility from your employer to the individual. And then obviously we go through the 80s and 90s with a boom in the economy, and everybody and their brother was a financial genius because no matter which stock they picked, it was a winner. And then people got discouraged in 2000. And and then again in 2008. But we look at the history and how, not just how the market's changed, but how people's mindset has changed. It used to be where people would pay attention to their job and how good they were at their job, and their company took care of the finances. Then the responsibility shifted to the individual, and during that boom economy from 82 to 2000, then greed started to set in a little bit, and people wanted to have those 30 and 40% returns year after year. And they didn't have the mindset of a pension fund manager, which was far more responsible and thinking more on a long-term perspective. Now, where we sit today, we're coming off a bull run from 2009 to 2024, and this bull run has been different from the others because it hasn't been due to fundamental strength in the economy. It's primarily been caused by the Federal Reserve injecting so much cash into the economy from 2009 to today.
Yeah, there are bailouts during both the 2008 recession and during the COVID of 2020.
That's right. And so although the Fed may think they have a good handle on being able to manage the stability of the economy, there is that underlying nature that it has to come down. There has to be a correction. You can only inject cash into the economy for so long. I mean, to be fair, it's surprising that it's worked as long as it has. But that said, just like it's kind of like the market's on cocaine. At some point, it's going to crash, or at least correct.
There was that movie, what was it, 2023, the movie Cocaine Bear? And I guess this is cocaine bull market. Is that right?
Yeah. No. We're
not going to name the episode that, but that's a funny image. Okay. So.
Now, that said, as the fundamentals of our economy strengthen with potential changes in how things are run, that will definitely aid in decreasing the amount of potential crash we could have experienced. Now, that said, things may not fall as hard and as fast as they could have, but there still has to be a decline. And that is actually a healthy correction. when bad debt gets wiped out of the economy and companies that needed to fail are allowed to fail, it's kind of like pruning. Our economy needs some pruning. And if we can have our funds properly allocated during this season, then we'll be able to be well positioned for us to really thrive in the next bull cycle.
So then how do we translate what you said there? And I see where you're going, but how do we translate that into the quality of life of retirement? How do people start to make those decisions, or how do you and the Jabez Financial team coach people and help them establish goals that get them going in that direction? So instead of an example that I was told, like when I was talking to another advisor recently of, okay, you saved all this money for retirement, you don't buy a yacht the first day of retirement and then live off of that. I mean, obviously you have to make it last. So how do you get people to maintain the quality of life they want?
Well, it starts with actually really walking through with somebody to define exactly what it is that they want. Most people, when I ask them what their goals are, 90% of the time, it's avoidance of pain. I just want to be able to make it. I just want to not hurt. I just want to not stress. And what I want to help people do is kind of change their mindset rather than how do I live out the rest of my days just not hurting, but how can I create something to look forward to? People are motivated either by the fear of loss or the desire for gain, or just trying to be comfortable. And what I kind of want to look at is if you want to increase the quality of your retirement years, you've got to have some sort of plan, not just to survive, but having something to look forward to. And that's where when we define exactly what is it that you are looking forward to, what can you get excited about? Not just the next vacation, but what kind of contribution can you make to society that's actually enriching and fulfilling and brings meaning to your life? And once that's established, we can put a price tag on it and then pursue it like there's no tomorrow. But the idea is just because somebody's not working anymore, that doesn't mean they should stop dreaming.
Okay. That's a great point. And there are a lot of things that people could do, whether it's maximizing tax efficiency, whether it's, if you if you're earlier in retirement, maybe you could do things that are a little bit less safe and grow more. Whereas if you're later in retirement, you can make that adjustment. You have to take RMDs in your 70s, right? So what do you do before that to prepare for certain taxes? All these different things. If somebody goes right now, Glenn, to jbezfinancial.com, and they're not already a client of yours, what is the first step?
The first step is to reach out and start a relationship. I want to be able to get a chance to look somebody in the eye, shake their hand, meet them face to face, and find out, do we have the potential for a long-term relationship here? Because I want to work, because I look at it this way. I love what I do. The most successful man, one of the most successful men I heard speak said, "I'll retire the day after I die, maybe." Right? So for my plan personally, just to share that, is I want to construct a lifestyle that I can continue doing as long as my brain works. I don't want to have to wait until I'm 60 or 70 to start enjoying life. Shoot, I love it now. And as I've constructed this lifestyle, I'm looking forward to working with people for the next 20, 30 years. Really, as long as my brain works, I want to be able to keep serving and making a difference.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it. And so when someone goes, look, Glenn Johnson's ready to serve. All right. Do you want to be served? Will it work out? Yeah. Go to jbezfinancial.com and make that establishment. And I remember the last time we recorded, Glenn, you said gbj@jbezfinancial.com. That's your email address. That's not an answering service or a bot. You got to love the bot chats, right? It's not even an assistant, and they're great. We love assistants. No, GBJ. The G and the J stand for Glenn Johnson, everybody. Spoiler alert. GBJ. What's the B?
Bradford. It's my middle name.
Glenn Bradford Johnson, gbj@jbezfinancial.com. Shoot him an email. Go to jbezfinancial.com. Also, set up that complimentary first appointment there, and they'll get right into it and help you establish the quality of life you want. Could you at least put the goals on paper and then start making the moves? Well, Glenn, thanks for lending us your time today. And again, remind him of the name of the book.
The Motivation Manifesto, coming out soon.
the Motivation Manifesto. And as we hear this, I think it'll be out by that point, and Glenn's going to be here in the Atlanta area helping sign copies of that. Well, thanks to Glenn for his time there, and all of you for listening to the Man Unit Podcast. Thanks to our producer, Daniel Salerson, for putting it together and zapping it into cyberspace. If you want to share this or let people know in your circle about it, be sure and send them the link and then turn on the notifications so you know when the new episodes come out. They come out every 2 weeks. He's Glenn Johnson. I'm Doug Turnbull. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Man Unit Podcast. We'll have another episode coming your way here shortly.
Investment advisory services offered through Jabez Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor firm. Registration is not an endorsement by securities regulators. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance products, including annuities, offered through Glenn Johnson Connecticut Insurance, license number 4628409. The firms are separate entities. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company and are not offered by Jabez Financial LLC. Read your contract for restrictions, limitations, or penalties. Jabez Financial LLC is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Jabez Financial LLC is licensed in your state, please call 860-390-0093.